We are back again, and this one is a critical one. This is something I hear from my students over and over again, and I made this mistake for many years. Don't memorize. What? I have to write out my speech. Yep, you do. I have to work on it and reword it. Yep, you do, but you don't have to memorize. See, here's the challenge. When you memorize something, it's word for word in your head. In the old days of stand-up comedy, I would freak out. If somebody would heckle me, in my head, because I had it memorized, I would freak out. I would have to go back to the beginning of my routine to try and catch up to where I was to continue, because they freaked me out. The heckler in the middle of it jarred me and jarred my thinking. So I had to go back to the beginning to get to where I was. I couldn't just be in the moment. So if you don't memorize, what do you do? Well, try this strategy. I still want you to write it out. I still want you to tweak it. I still want you to make the words better on paper or in a Word document. Now, read it over and over again, but when it comes to the moment, when you're actually delivering it, take the script and let it go. What? Now be present. So what we say is don't memorize, internalize. Don't memorize, internalize, which means get the speech into your body. One of my coaches, her name is Patricia Fripp. She practices her speech on the treadmill while she's moving. Movement will help you internalize what you're saying and help get it into your body. I am horrible at memorizing. So when I was working on the World Championship speech, I needed a strategy. So I had my little vignettes, the little stories and the points that I was making. But what I did was I took a yellow piece of paper and I put my key line or phrase on that yellow piece of paper and I put it down on the stage. When I was practicing in my bedroom, I would practice right there. So I'd put, here's the first story, 238,799. It's just a line that helps trigger me. So when I would walk over to that spot, if I didn't remember what I was going to say, I would look down. Oh yeah, that story. And I would tell that story. Then, after I finished that story, or that point, I would then transition to a mom and dad story. So check this out. This is what it would look like.
The next morning, the headlines read, "Moon rocket misses target by 238,799 and a half miles." Ouch! But those strangers are part of your process. We also have friends and family that love us and don't want to see us fall on our face.
So then I had another story about hand gestures was my key word. That's what reminded me, a story where I was doing hand gestures, the old improv game with one of the people in my audience, and I was telling a story about that. And then I had another one about VNI, valuable negative information. Information essential to get closer to the moon. So it's part of my speech. Check this out.
We learn from the ouch. In an effort to reach the moon, Dr. Goddard said, "Failures I consider valuable negative information. Information essential to each step getting closer to the moon."
So what I did is I was anchoring each place on the stage. So when I walked through my speech, this spot was 238,799. This spot was the mom and dad story. This spot was hand gestures. So the more I would go there, and then here's what I did. I had my dad stand in front of me when I was practicing on a big stage by myself, and I would walk to that spot. But what I had him do is randomly go out of order. See, I don't want to memorize everything in order, because what if you mess up? What if you have a brain blank or a brain fart? What do you do? And so what I was doing was internalizing and anchoring. Each story came from a different place. So even if I didn't know it word for word, I knew the story. I knew the idea. I knew the point that I was trying to make. You got to think backwards. You got to think like an aerobics instructor from left to right. So we want our audience to read left to right. So we kind of have to do it backwards, if that makes sense. So when I transitioned from the 238,000 miles to the mom and dad story, watch how I transition physically on stage.
We also have friends and family that love us and don't want to see us fall on our face.
So now see, when I'm transitioning physically, I have a transition line that helps me tell and communicate to the audience, we're now going to a new point. Now I just need to get that point across from here, and then I transition to the next point on stage. So I've anchored in my mind these different stories or points on the stage. So the more I would go and stand there, the more when I just stood there, I just knew what I was going to say. Now this still requires some practice, but we say don't memorize, internalize. Don't memorize, internalize. So you're internalizing your speech. So you want to write it well. You want to improve it. Great speeches aren't written, they're rewritten. But then you want to get it into your body and then let go. And be in the moment and be present. See, your audience doesn't want you perfect. They want you present. They want you real, connected to them. Being able, when somebody laughs over on the side, you got what I'm saying, to be able to interact with them. Look, I know this is a lot, just taking this in your public speaking class, but trust me, this is going to serve you for the rest of your career. It will help you become a better presenter when you're not trying to memorize something word for word. You know, if you're using slides, this can help prompt you going from hand gestures to VNI, valuable negative information. Okay, so this slides can help prompt you as well. But don't write out everything you're going to say in the slide. That's a big mistake, because then you sit there and you talk like this because you're reading and you read differently, hand gestures to V and I, and you become a robot, so it's not authentic. That's why you don't want too much on your slides if you're going to use slides. You just want that thing that prompts you, just like I did on the paper. So don't memorize, internalize. By the way, if you'd like to check out my speech, it's on YouTube, the full speech. It's only 7 minutes long, but you can check it out on YouTube. Just put in Darren LaCroix winning speech. And if you'd like to get my top 10 speaking mistakes, just go to beasponge.com. Don't memorize, internalize.
Check out StageTimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.